Hi, and welcome to episode 8 of the Pharmacy Lounge podcast. Today we talked to Archna Chauhan about the move from community pharmacy to hospital. As you know, working in community pharmacy, it's quite difficult to make the move from community to hospital, and it can make most of us anxious. So Archna, being a community pharmacist herself, made the move about a year ago and decided to write a blog post about her time in hospital and how to basically make that transition. She wrote a post on LinkedIn recently, and I reached out to her to see if we could make a podcast and try and give some tips for anyone who does want to make that move, or if they want to reach out to the Archna themselves and have a quick discussion about making the move. So, Archna, welcome to the show, and thank you for coming. Tell us a bit more about yourself and where your move from community into the hospital sector.
Yes. Hi everyone, I'm Archna. Thank you for having me. I was a community pharmacist. I graduated from the University of Reading in 2017. I did my pre-registration within the community setting, and I decided to take the full-time employment within the same branch as well. So I was working for 100-hour pharmacies. So as you know, that is quite busy with all the shift work. We did around 10,000, 11,000 items per month. So it was quite a very busy pharmacy. My entire background is essentially community pharmacy. I loved every minute of it. But for me, I wanted to increase my clinical knowledge. And for that reason, I did want to transition into hospital. I also did a 2-week cross-sector placement within hospital, and that was during my pre-reg year. So I thought, in that time, let me get some experience within hospital. And if you guys who are doing like a pre-reg out there in community, if you can secure a placement within hospital, please try your best to do so. If you do want to transition in the future into hospital, it will make that thing slightly easier for you. My time in community, I loved every second of it. The whole getting to know your patients, being challenged over the counter. It gives me great satisfaction as a pharmacist. You're always on your toes there. There's not a day goes by where it's the same old. And I know a lot of people say that. A lot of people say community pharmacy is quite repetitive or it's quite boring. It's what you make it out to be. For me personally, I do not think it's boring at all. You're always being challenged. So my entire background was community.
Okay, so you did your pre-registration training in community, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then you did pre-registration for a year, and then you worked for a year as well in community, and then you made that transition. So, what was your first day like? I'm trying to imagine. If I was to start in community in hospital from community, the first day would be quite daunting. Where do I go? Where do I start? I've spent some time working in hospital myself, and it's a very different environment. How do you go from really fast, high-paced environment to suddenly then to a really slow environment where it's a totally different way of working? What was going through your mind on your very first day?
To be completely honest, you have time. Like in hospital, you don't realize how much time you have. So my first day in hospital was completely overwhelming. You're going from knowing everything, doing everything yourself, to being on a ward where you have other healthcare professionals, patients, you have all your drug charts coming at you, questions after questions, and you don't really know what you're doing. So I was quite overwhelmed. But taking into account, you need to know your trust, SOPs, your policies. You can't exactly just dive into your work. You need to understand your trust first and how they operate, and they will tell you what you can and cannot do whilst working on the ward. Especially for me, being a junior pharmacist, I have a lot to learn clinically. So seeing that drug chart, seeing some medications which I've never come across before can be quite daunting, and it was for me on my first day. I needed to ask for a lot of help from seniors, and I just felt a bit lost, to be honest. Yeah.
Is there a lot of support available from the other pharmacists in the hospital?
Yeah, for me, I felt like I shouldn't be asking for help because at the end of the day, I'm qualified. But then you have to think about you only know what you know. So if you come across a medicine you've not seen before, then you need to ask for help. And there's no harm in asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, other pharmacists are going to be busy. They have their own work to do, their own ward to sort out. But at the end of the day, you have a duty where you have to put your patients first, making sure you see to them and making sure all the medicines prescribed are correct. So in terms of asking for help, and the support I've received is amazing.
Okay. I mean, are you ever left on your own to just, thrown in the deep end and you're just on your own? You've got to figure things out. Have you ever been in that kind of situation, or have you always had some kind of support there?
So luckily for me at my trust, we go through, for me, I think it was 3 months of training. So within that 3 months, I was always with a senior pharmacist. I have numerous competencies in order to pass. I had many tests at the end of them in order to show my competence. Mm-hmm. So starting in hospital, for me personally, I wasn't thrown into the deep end. I had a lot of support and made sure I was ready before I was left on the ward by myself.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you said you created like a blog for helping pharmacists make that transition. What are the main points you'd say for anyone who wants to make that transition?
So firstly, I would say, please don't panic. I know it's how hard it can be. And I know if you have interviews, they tell you, you've come from community. That means absolutely nothing. You're a qualified pharmacist. You can differentiate between right and wrong. You know how to make your clinical judgment. But please don't let that affect your decision in wanting to transition into hospital. In terms of like preparation, you can prepare for it, and I wish someone would tell me this before as well. But just little things like reading up on medicines you might see in hospital every day. So at my trust, we have enoxaparin, which is on every single drug chart. So maybe research about enoxaparin, maybe research about how to clinically screen a prescription, which I'm currently writing like a little help sheet on that as well to make things easier. Mm-hmm. Other things would be to learn how to take a good medication history with your patients as well. So again, I'm writing a document on that as well, which I will be publishing on my LinkedIn. Just don't panic. You're qualified. You only know what you know. So if you need help, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Okay. So tell us, when you made this blog post, when you're writing these posts for different aspects of working in community in hospital, are these purely from your personal experience, or are these like standard operating procedures for your own trust or for your own hospital, or is this something that can be applied to pretty much any pharmacy, any hospital pharmacy?
So all the posts what I'm doing and all the little cheat sheets or whatever you want to call them, what I'm doing is from my personal experience only. So legally, I'm not really allowed to use anything from my trust SOPs or policies, which I won't be doing. So everything that I do is literally from my own experience, but you can apply that to any hospital that you want to work in. So for me, because I'm only a band 6 pharmacist at the moment, I can only produce documents that come from my experience. So for example, taking a drug history, I've had that experience. I know how to communicate with them patients. So I can use that, gather all my experiences and write what I feel would be beneficial for other pharmacists who wish to use that when they transition. So nothing will be from my trust's SOPs or policies whatsoever.
Okay. And these cheat sheets of this blog is free for everyone to access?
Yes, I'm currently in the process of building my own website as well, like a little blog site that will be uploaded on there. For now, it is only through LinkedIn because it's relatively new that I've started this project. But yeah, everything will be free for people to access.
And what do you hope to gain from this?
I just want people to, I just want community pharmacists to feel less pressured when transitioning. A few messages that I've received is literally all based around them feeling anxious. So I want to reduce their anxiety. You know, you're qualified, you know you're right from wrong, you can make those clinical judgments. So be confident in what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that would probably be the key message. Sorry to interrupt you on that one, because I think a lot of it is about confidence, and this word gets thrown around like, or it's clinical. You're a clinical pharmacist in hospital. You're more clinical, or you're less clinical in community. And I don't really buy that, purely because, and a lot of people might disagree with me, because we don't dispense Mars bars and Snickers bars in community. We still dispense medication, probably a lot more variety than you would in a hospital, because there's a huge variety of different patients that we see, and we don't have any standard set of drugs. It can literally from anywhere, anyone within the whole region can come in and ask for their medication, and we have to know and understand those medication, the interaction, and everything that goes behind it. We have to know, just like you would in hospital. So anyone who says you're not a clinical pharmacist in community, I don't think fully understands the meaning of the word clinical. And I think we need to try and get that message across, that if you're in hospital, in community pharmacy, you're still a clinical pharmacist. If you're in hospital, yes, you're a clinical pharmacist. And there shouldn't be an issue of confidence. You're just going from one environment, which is fast-paced, very commercial, to one which is not commercial, but it's purely focused on the clinical aspects rather than the commercial aspects. So you're more about time management and drug management, and making sure patients get all the drugs that they need and it's at the right dose, and you're dealing with all the consultants and the doctors that have prescribed those drugs. And I think this is really the key difference. When I've worked in hospitals, I've worked in a couple of private hospitals and spent some time in cross-sector placement as well in my pre-reg year. I spent 4 weeks with Insure. And essentially the difference was really that, sort of thinking about MURs and MSs and the commercial side of things. All I'm doing is looking at prescriptions, looking at the BNF, looking at the interactions, and you've got a whole team there, and it is a lot more slower paced compared to the community. So you've got the time to really do your research, look at your drug charts, and look at all the nice guidelines and all the hospital trust guidelines as well. So I think that would probably be the main difference for me, from my own experience at least, and from what I can gather from you as well. That's essentially the same thing from your end as well. So before I think that kind of ends the whole podcast quite nicely. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to this, or any other message that you'd like to give to the community pharmacists that want to make that transition?
Well, currently I'm actually writing a short post on how community pharmacists can sell their skills if they have an interview for hospital. So I don't want anyone to feel like you're just a community pharmacist, because you're not. And the amount of skills that we learn is absolutely amazing, what we learn. So I will be writing more on that, and hopefully that should boost their confidence as well. Because doing self-reflection, when I was a community pharmacist, I was literally sat there writing. I was like, oh, I can do this, I can do that. And I've seen myself grow in hospital as well. I've seen myself apply these skills whilst working in hospital, and I want to put that out there as well. So, yeah.
That's brilliant. And you know what? Thank you for writing these blogs. I think it will help a lot of people make that move, and especially in the current climate where pharmacists are looking to get away from community pharmacy because of all the issues. I think it'll be a great way for pharmacists to kind of look at other areas as well. So again, thank you for coming on today's podcast, and thank you for writing up this blog as well. And if you have any questions, we'll forward them over to you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and I hope I can inspire a lot of people. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.